Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host and head witch, Miss Solaris BlueRaven, at the helm this evening. I want to give a shout-out to everybody at Revolution Radio, staff, producers, listeners, chat room, and thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. And we are 100% listener-supported, so if you like what you're hearing, please click on the donate button. We appreciate your support, and thank you for any contribution you can make to this excellent station. And we have a lovely lunar eclipse coming up, along with a full blood moon coming up this Tuesday. So coming from a ritual perspective, this is business as usual for magical practitioners such as myself. It is also an excellent time for manifestation and to banish unwanted energies. And for practitioners of the craft, this is a reboot to your spiritual battery. Elixirs will be quite potent when charged during this full blood moon, as well as crystals and anything else you want to charge under this lunar cycle influence. So it's not necessarily a negative thing, as most people would suspect. If you're used to this sort of thing and you come from the craft, it's just one of those days. Anyways, once you get calibrated for universal harmonics and celestial alignments, various lunar activities are just part of the mathematical equation of experience. I will say the moon accentuates the emotional body, which allows for an amplification of one's feelings. In other words, tensions can become heightened, so pay attention to that. And what else do I have for you? Let's see here. Oh, yes, we have another Super Soldier Summit 3 coming up late May 30th, 31st, and June 1st in Las Vegas. You can purchase your tickets at www.supersoldiersummit.com. There is an excellent lineup of speakers at this event. I will be there speaking as well. And I suggest everybody go ahead and try to support that and get out there and get a ticket. I think you'll be very impressed with the information. And you are listening to Studio A. And speaking of red tonight, we are going to talk about Mars. And my special guest this evening is Steve Colbern, who has been on my show numerous times. And he's my space brother from another mother. It's always a pleasure to have him on. And his bio, of course, is he is a chemist, materials scientist with 20 years of industrial experience. He is currently working in the area of carbon nanotubes. Colbern has recently analyzed several alleged alien implants that the late Dr. Roger Leir has removed from his patients and has uncovered startling findings. His website is actually that's not www, but it's alienevidenceinc.webs.com. And please welcome Steve to the show this evening. And Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great tonight, Solaris. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on board tonight. So thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm psyched to talk about Mars tonight. You know, it seems to me that there's a lot happening over there on that little red planet.
Yeah, Mars is in opposition right now, so this is an appropriate time to talk about it. It's the closest it's going to get to the Earth this cycle, so it's appropriate to talk about it. We have the 3 rovers up there, and we've got a lot of data from numerous Mars probes, and NASA has found a lot of things that are, shall we say, anomalous, and they don't want people to know about it. But their main defense right now, besides the image tampering they've been doing, is just having such a sheer volume of pictures on their websites that nobody but the hardcore people like you and me are going to wade through it all.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And can you elaborate a little bit on the anomalous images? What have you found out? What kind of information?
All kinds of things. Basically, the ground-based astronomers are right about Mars, especially Percival Lowell. The Martian canals are real. There's vegetation, especially near the South Pole. There's actually trees near the South Pole. Along the canals, there's bushes, and pretty much everywhere on the planet, there's lichens on the rocks that change with the seasons. There's not a lot of water, but much more than on the moon, and you can see it seeping into the canals in some of the Mars Global Surveyor shots. There's lakes. The atmospheric pressure is probably quite a bit higher than we've been told. The rovers seem to be seeing fossils and what look like metallic pieces, junk of some kind from crashed vehicle or spacecraft, and I've seen in some of the Spirit and Opportunity rover shots what look like pieces of wood, logs, possible organisms, dead insects, crab-like creatures, things like that.
Mm-hmm. And do you think those pictures are actually valid, or do you think they're just something that's been like maybe an image here from the planet that's been kind of modified, or do you really think they're for real, some of those?
They've got to be for real, because that's not something that NASA wants to advertise, apparently. And if it were just 1 or 2 images, I would say it could be just a fluke. But we have hundreds of these sorts of anomalies. I mean, one of them, for example, showed what looked like a skull or a statue head sticking above the surface of the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some of those also, and my first impression when I first started looking through all these photos is that they're just like, it looks like Arizona with some imagery, and they're all faking it. The problem I have with NASA right now is that they literally just a front man for the lie. And insofar as really presenting data or truth, they're just not doing that. And of course, I think you mentioned before that it's really it's the intelligence departments that are really running the show. Insofar as deciding. Go ahead.
NASA basically, the old joke is NASA stands for never a straight answer. And what a lot of people don't know is that the powers that be take this space imaging stuff extremely seriously, and nobody but the very highest people in NASA get to see the actual raw data. The raw data actually goes to the NSA for image tampering or outright withholding before it ever comes to NASA or the public.
Exactly. I think that's infuriating if you ask me. But, NSA has their hands over everything. I mean, they're literally all over the map when it comes down to data and confiscation of information. And then, of course, spying on everybody and extracting data from people's personal lives and energy fields and burning templates and everything else. Well, don't get me started with them. But I will tell you, it is our, and I know you understand this is our celestial heritage we're talking about. We have a birthright that is universal that allows us to have access to this information without censorship. Now, I don't know about you, but I've just about had enough with this crap. And what I've seen across the globe, I mean, you know what? We've been lied to since day one, since we were born onto this earth. And all they've done is present us with lies, censorship, brainwashing, you name it, it goes right down the pike. So, yeah, I'd like to see this all just kind of just come out and say, look, you guys are fired, and let's just rewrite the whole system because it doesn't work, and I'm tired of it. Quite honestly, I'm tired of the game.
Well, we need a private expedition to Mars, either manned and unmanned, actually. And, the reason that, in my opinion, the reason that they're doing this cover-up, and it's been going on since the 50s, by the way, it's nothing recent. They were really scared that some of the ground-based astronomers would announce this kind of stuff. The reason they're doing this is because if they announce that there's life, even plant life, and fairly habitable conditions or conditions that life can stand anyway on the planet right next door, then that makes the whole UFO and alien abduction thing far more likely in the public mind.
Oh, absolutely. And it also, it confirms that we are star beings, and of course we know that. It's kind of a no-brainer for those of us who are on the path because we already know celestial heritage. And there's a big footprint. I mean, there's a footprint that's a universal footprint that gives us our lineage. And these guys have been trying to wipe it out and cover it up. And another thing is the history of Mars. I mean, truly, we've looked at some real, and I wouldn't even call them conspiracies, but there's a lot with Mars, with civilizations that are advanced, perhaps a machine-type civilization. And you're talking about an atmosphere that was once there that was supposedly taken out. So, what's your take on all that?
Well, according to Tom Van Flandern, who was the former head of the U.S. Naval Observatory, and he had a very complex theory worked out about this. Mars was once a moon of the original Planet 4 in that orbit, but Planet 4 was larger than the Earth. And Planet 4 exploded 65 million years ago and whipped away a good part of Mars's atmosphere. And that's the reason that Mars on one hemisphere is fairly highly cratered and the other hemisphere is relatively smooth. It also explains certain isotopic ratio changes in the Martian atmosphere and the xenon isotope ratios in the Martian atmosphere, among other things. And the Martian atmosphere is probably almost as dense as ours at one point. Most of it was ripped away, but it's still most likely about 10 times denser than NASA is saying. NASA's saying that the pressure on Mars is between 6 and 9 millibars. Well, that's near vacuum. And they cannot reproduce all the dust devils on Mars in NASA simulations at that pressure. It would have to be probably almost 10 times greater than that in order to cause dust devils. And the dust devils are all over the planet, even at the highest elevations there, like at Mount Olympus, there's dust devils. So the conclusions are escapable, and they got this data from unreliable radio occultation experiments in the first space probe to pass by Mars in the first place. So most of the space probes that have gone to Mars haven't even had pressure sensors, or they've been made to max out at about 9 millibars. So if the pressure were higher than that, we wouldn't know. Maybe that's by design.
Right.
Also, it seems unlikely that a reasonable sized parachute, like they've had on these rovers, to slow them down to a reasonable speed during the descent, so that they can get down the rest of the way with a reasonable amount of rocket fuel. It just seems like a parachute that size would not really slow you down that much in near vacuum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Calculations are kind of difficult, but I mean they have to know the exact pressure in order to design a parachute.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting is if you can talk a little bit louder. I know you're on your cell phone, but if you can kind of talk.
Sure,
yeah, I know how we had this issue before, but you're doing fine.
Yeah, about that.
No, you're fine. Don't worry about it. But you know, it's interesting when I look at Mars. I know that there was also talk about you talked about the radioactive isotopes, and there was a suggestion that Mars was actually nuked by. Have you heard that theory?
Yeah, I've heard that that there could have been a nuclear war on Mars at one point, or it could be that the explosion of Planet 4 involved some sort of fission reaction, and that might have been what caused the odd isotopic ratio of the xenon.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I find that pretty interesting. You know,
there's some evidence that there was a war on Mars in the distant past. Some of the monuments have damage consistent with explosions.
Mm-hmm. You know,
monuments in the Cydonia area, particularly.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting because I've been looking at this for a while now. I've just been kind of processing the data piece by piece. But, you know, when you look at everybody's extraction of information and you try to piece it all together, it seems to me like there's something that's really not being relayed. And of course, NASA's it's spoon-feeding everybody. And you're right, it's due to censorship by government and this and that. But there's something else happening behind the scenes. And I really get the feeling that Mars and the imagery that people are seeing is nothing compared to what's really going on over there right now. And I also get the feeling that they have occupants. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think Mars is still inhabited at a low population density. Mostly people live mostly underground. I think the original inhabitants of Mars, who were reportedly human-looking as well as grays, and are inhabiting the place now. But it's of course not as habitable as it used to be. So it's more advantageous to live underground at this point. But the exciting thing about the new findings about Mars and finding the ground-based astronomers are probably right is that the atmospheric pressure may be barely high enough to just go outside of just an oxygen mask once you adapt it to the conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Need a spacesuit.
Right, that's awesome.
That would make the planet a lot more valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I could see people terraforming over there, you know, especially the breakaway societies.
Totally.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that, you know, it kind of reminds me of the people who have the money to do so will probably do that. And then this planet will go to hell in a handbasket. And I know that sounds kind of cynical, but when I look at what's happening and how this planet's being terraformed from day to day, and it's really the resources are getting completely molested, you know, it tells me that this it's almost like a mirror image of what happened to Mars insofar as what's happening on Earth. You know.
I think they've already been to Mars, by the way. I think that the secret space program was, dispatched manned missions to Mars many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly the impression I get anyway.
Yeah, I also get the impression that we are our ancestors insofar as I have a sense that the Martians were actually our lineage. I don't know what your take is on that one. I'm
not sure, really. Reports indicate that the original Martians were human-looking, and that some of them have come to Earth. Whether they interbred with humans or not is another story. I wouldn't be surprised.
Mm-hmm. No, I wouldn't either, especially when you start correlating all the data from the pyramids and even other areas, across the globe. Seems to me like they're all triangulating in the same area when it comes down to lineage. But I find it very interesting nonetheless, and I think this is a good time to talk about Mars a little bit because there's so much phobia, with the blood moon coming up and this and that, and I'm just like, I wish people would ascend in consciousness a little bit higher to a point where they're not driven by fear, because it's always about superstition, It's never about higher consciousness. We are guided by the stars. We navigate by the celestial mechanics of the universe, and once people understand that navigation, and I know you do, it's a lot easier to comprehend little things like a blood moon or a full moon. But it's superstition. I have no tolerance for that at all.
Yeah, not knowing your place in the universe is a really bad thing, and I think that you're right, and nothing good will come out of a fear-based mental universe.
I so agree.
It's better to come from a positive way of viewing things rather than a negative one.
I agree. You know what's really amazing to me? I think what it gets down to right now, especially for me on this timeline, is that no more of the BS, no more of the lies, no more of the deception, the veils and the obfuscation, all this garbage, all these games that have been played out for, oh, we're going to give you this piece of information, but we're going to hide this. They don't have a right to hide anything, and they do it in the name of national security and a lot of other things. But literally, they have no right to edit, censor, or take away any information.
It's really BS that this is in the name of national security anyway, as we both know, because they're not protecting security per se. They're protecting the profit margins of the people that really own the society.
Mm-hmm.
It'd actually be more secure if they let the truth out. Then we could have some of the higher technology that's being suppressed. We need to get off oil and go to zero-point energy power sources, and that's the only power source that's truly limitless. And people have come out with zero-point energy power sources since the 1930s, and they're all ruthlessly suppressed, and that's what most UFOs run on.
Exactly.
So they just want to keep the masses down, basically. But that's the main reason that they're covering all this information up.
I agree. So, and what's interesting is the masses are allowing this, though. That's the funny part. They don't seem to be having a problem with being lied to, and I'm like, I don't get it. I really don't. I'm like, I don't
want to know.
Well,
as an example, one time when my ex-wife and I were signing a deal for our condo, we were signing all these papers. They have hundreds of papers that you have to sign for any kind of real estate deal anymore in this paranoid society. So we were signing all these papers, and we were all getting bored. And I started talking about UFO just to pass the time. And I could tell the real estate lady believed me, and her eyes got as wide as dinner plates, and she just I could tell she was getting really scared. And I think a lot of people are like that. They may believe it halfway, but they don't want to hear about it, and they just don't want to know, and they're just not ready for the information. So the government has a point on that. But then again, if there were a panic, people don't panic for so long.
Right. Well, I think they need to be educated. Yeah, I think the bottom line is that had they been honest to begin with, none of this would be going on. You don't have to lie to somebody if you're honest with them to begin with, and that's the problem that I'm seeing right now, is that all of a sudden it's like, oh, they can't handle the truth. Well, maybe you should have told them the truth to begin with, jerks, I'm sorry, guys, but tonight I'm fired up. Go ahead.
The next thing the government will tell you if you bring that up, that they should have told them the truth to begin with, is that aliens are all hostile. And so if they were, that either way, they should have told the truth. If they were hostile, and you can't fight something you don't believe in, so they should have told people the truth to get ready for the enemy if they were hostile. I don't believe that, but I mean, either way, they should have told the truth.
I agree. I don't believe they're hostile either. I think the only hostility is coming from mankind, to be honest. I think they're the problem. And maybe that's why this was a quarantine planet to some degree, because of all the BS and all the control mechanisms and all the brainwashing that's been going on for centuries. I mean, those of us who are star beings, I mean, it's a no-brainer to know you have starseed blood. I mean, it's just, for any of us who know, I mean, we just look up at the stars at night and know the universe, and we know that consciousness. And that's another thing, too. People need to know how to navigate in the heavens. And I know they know how to do that. That's a natural benchmark of consciousness. I mean, you'd have to really try hard not to be able to tune in.
I'm noticing that the starseeds are pretty much immune to the system brainwashing. No matter how hard they try, they can't brainwash the starseeds. I think it frustrates them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I get that, too, because look at what they put me through, and they still couldn't break me. So, yeah. But I look back now, and I look at everything that's happening on this planet, and I'm thinking to myself, it's time for this to stop. I mean, no more. You can't just sit there and wish on a new government and say, oh, it's going to get better with the next one. It's not. This whole structure needs to go. It doesn't work. It doesn't fit. It never did. It never will. It's been wrong since day one. In the illusion of measuring time, I mean, literally, this whole system is just a messed up. Whoever designed it, shame on them. That's all I have to say about it. I'm talking planetary groups, by the way.
I don't think it was really designed. I think it just fell into place. It's what design there is favoring just the profit margin of the power elite that own it.
Yeah, exactly. They keep everybody so darn busy. Everybody's so busy spinning their wheels in the mud, working, trying to make a living, that they're forgetting how to live. They're forgetting how to tune into higher consciousness. They're getting saturated by dead television sets and lousy mainstream lies. They're getting lied to by politicians. Let me count the ways how mankind has been screwing up on this one. Let me tell you. So, and I know you understand this too, Steve, but, when you look at all these beautiful things out there in the universe, all these wonderful planets, that's our history too. And everything that's happening in the solar system, in the universe, in the multiverse is part of our celestial heritage. We have a right to know what's going on without censorship. And it's becoming to a point where it's almost privatized to a point where only a few people who can pay the highest bid will have access to what we should all have access to.
Yeah. Getting back to Mars for a minute, one thing that a lot of people don't know is that the Mars polar lander that landed at the South Pole of Mars back around it was 96. That mission actually didn't crash like they announced. Most likely it was classified. What happened? There's an interesting story on that. After NASA announced that it crashed, President Bush wasn't satisfied with that explanation, and so he commissioned the National Reconnaissance Imaging Group to some of the best imagers in the spook world to find the thing from the Mars Global Surveyor images. And they went through them all, and they found a few pixels that corresponded to, in their final report, an intact lander sitting on the surface with its solar panels deployed. And NASA got very upset and said that it was noise in the data, and they said they stand by their analysis. So most likely that mission did not crash as advertised, but it was classified because there's a lot of vegetation in that area near the South Pole of Mars, and they didn't want us to see it.
It's really amazing, isn't it? And I'm sure not many people understand that information or even know about it. Where are you going to read about it?
There's snow on Mars, it frosts, it rains occasionally, and it's a lot more Earth-like than people want people to think. And also the sky is blue on Mars, not red.
Right, that's what I've heard, yeah.
They turn up the red in most press release images of Mars to cover up the green. There's a lot of green on Mars, a lot of lichens on the rocks and things. Large vegetation is kind of rare, but there's enough green to make people suspicious if they didn't put a lot of red into the image artificially. Right,
so they're really airbrushing a lot of, contrast in there, huh?
Yeah, also one thing I wanted to say is that there was a huge gap in Mars mission between Viking in 1976 and the next mission in Pathfinder, which I think was landed in 1994. And there was a mission in between the Mars Observer, 1991, and that mission was reported lost as well. And I think that was also classified because at the time they did not have computer image tampering techniques developed. Right now they have computer programs that will automatically remove anything that was artificial. It doesn't always work, but it works for probably 90% of artificial-looking items in the field of view. And they didn't have that technology when the Mars Observer was launched. So this resulted in fighting between NASA and the intelligence agencies, and it was either destroyed or the mission was classified.
That's really amazing. Getting your hands on some of those old pictures before they were tampered with would be nice, huh?
Yeah, it definitely would be. Well, there are the Mars Global Surveyor shots, that show vegetation, for example, near the South Pole of Mars. Some of these things are huge. Some of these things are like half a kilometer across, trees. They'll be some of the biggest tourist attractions in the solar system someday.
That's what's so interesting. I've heard also that they say Mars was a moon. So now I'm wondering, well, if that's the case, then why is there a vegetation like that if it was just a moon?
Well, it's big enough to be a small planet in its own right, but it was a moon of a much larger planet, maybe 2 or 3 times the mass of the Earth. And that large planet exploded and then cratered half of Mars and ripped away most of its atmosphere.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'd like to have a time machine and kind of look at that when it actually transpired. That'd be kind of cool, huh?
Yeah. Van Flandern says the explosion occurred about 65 million years ago, which corresponds with the extinction of the dinosaurs. So you can imagine if a big planet just next door to the Earth exploded, enough debris would make its way to the Earth to make several asteroid strikes at that time. And that makes a lot of sense because the dinosaurs didn't go all at once. They were declining for some thousands of years before they actually went out completely. So they probably were rained debris on for quite some time before the large asteroid hit and wiped them out.
Right. And the question is, what exactly happened to Mars? What exactly happened to the Planet 4, I think is what you were talking about, too. There's suggestions that it was blown up. There's suggestions that maybe it didn't blow up and something else happened to it, something slammed into it. So I don't know if I think I've mentioned before, have you read Velikovsky's Worlds in Collision?
I've never read it, no.
Yeah, you might want to check it out. But it's just, every time I hear stuff like this, it reminds me of that, because it's just something that whirls through our solar system that just literally wreaks havoc on everything. I think at one point, was it Venus that almost collided into the Earth and then Mars pulled it back? That's the theory. I mean, don't quote me on this, guys, because I read this book a long time ago. But I find it very interesting, nonetheless, that something major happened, something catastrophic happened. And I think that we need to know exactly what that was in order to not have it, parallel itself again on this timeline here on Earth. I mean, it's my take that that's going to happen again. There's going to be a ripple effect. I don't know what your impression is.
Well, it sounds like you're talking about the theory of Nemesis. It's possible the Earth has a brown dwarf companion star with 10 associated planets.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say that system comes into the Earth's main solar system every 3,600 years or so. I'm not sure if that's true or not. If NASA has found such a thing and they know about it, they're covering their tracks very well. I cannot confirm that they exist. Some people say they've photographed it. They photographed it for the first time in 1985. I indeed found a photograph on the internet that purported to be the brown dwarf star they found. But as far as being able to confirm any of this, I haven't been able to.
Right. Yeah. And what's the benefit of lying? I mean, really, how are they benefiting by not providing us with information?
They're benefiting by being able to make up any story they like, basically, and they're feeding us a line of BS about where we came from, and they want to keep us controlled by not telling us what's going on. I mean, people would be a lot harder to control if they knew that aliens existed and that our place in the solar system, in the universe was not unique, and that there's a lot better technology out there than what we're using, and a lot of better life possible. Yep. People would demand that better life if they knew it existed. So
I agree with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, with our with our celestial heritage and our avatar abilities, I mean, once you become a multiversal being, you understand consciousness and how you can navigate. I mean, literally teleport without a quote-unquote spaceship. So there's so many things that are tied into that equation, I mean, with our lineage and our celestial heritage. And, of course, society's been dumbed down. The genetics have been tampered with. They've been brainwashed with food, this and that. And I'm not talking just this timeline. I'm talking since they were birthed onto the world. So there's always been some kind of deception game coming on. And when I look at the Earth today, I mean, that there's so much. It's like you might as well just zero it out and start all over with truth, because everything has been a fabrication.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that's alarming to me is the gap in intelligence and motivation between the starseed type humans and the normal humans, or whatever you want to call them. All the normal humans want to do is just watch sports on TV, and they've abdicated all their civic responsibilities to try to make things better in this world for the most part. Right.
Yeah, I think they've been enslaved. I think it's almost like their lineage to be a slave race. It's not our lineage. It's not mine, and it's not yours, but it certainly is a lot of people's. I'll tell you that, because there's something that usually cues people at the soul level not to follow the herd. And these guys, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's a comfort zone or what, but, and that's why the world hasn't changed. I mean, because people are complacent in the way this illusion is set up, the matrix. It works for them. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for you. And I know it doesn't work for a lot of other people. And the more I exist and the more I awaken, the less I want to experience this lie. I can't even take it anymore. I mean, I'm so sick and tired of liars.
Oh, you and me both. I'd love to be out of here, but you're right. This world, this society is a primitive version of the Matrix. It's a low-tech version of the Matrix. Mm-hmm. Instead of having everybody plugged into a computer simulation, they just create a non-computer simulation, basically through the media and through just controlling what people are allowed to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's been like that for a very long time, right down to, you can look at any instrument of control, whether it's a religion or a corporation or a belief system. Any belief system can be used for a control mechanism or a brainwashing tactic. So, think about all that. And then, of course, for the longest time, the enemy was the Martians. I don't know, all the movies that we used to see growing up, Mars this, Mars that, the villain's always on Mars. And it's just like, well, maybe the villain's on Earth,
I'm sure some of them came to Earth. I'm sure in my own mind anyway. I don't know any proof about it at this point, but I'm starting to I'm starting to relate, by the way, to people that aren't too wild about religion after being on the receiving end of some of their vile crap and prejudice the past year or so.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten a lot of flack for believing in aliens from certain family members, shall we say.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's usually about fear, and that's what I've noticed, unfortunately. And, I'm not bashing anyone's religion. If you're a good person spiritually, I don't care what you worship. I mean, you can worship the Pillsbury Doughboy for all I care. But if you're pointing fingers at everybody else and judging in fear and trying to assess people that you don't know, then you better take a check in the mirror and start looking at your own activities. And a lot of these people who say, go ahead.
I've noticed in particular that a lot of Protestant fundamentalists worship the almighty dollar.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny, a lot of people worship Jesus. They love Jesus, but they don't follow his work. They don't follow his teachings. And I mean, I'm like pagan witch, right? And I'm more Christed than half the Christians that claim they're Christians. I mean, so what's up with that? Yeah. I think, when you want to talk about Jesus, and let's not get too religious here, but, you're talking about a mystical being who was initiated into the mystery schools, okay? That's what Jesus was about in consciousness, and he taught the language of love and light and ascension and transfiguration at the cellular atomic level. They don't know that because their religions don't teach them that. It's censored for control and brainwashing tactics, as we all know. So what do? They go after people like the mystical scientists and persecute them for centuries, and then they come out and steal the data and start running with it like the Vatican does. Where does the Vatican get their archives? I have news for you. They got it from torturing and butchering people who were spiritual scientists. That's where they got their information.
They love to persecute people, even though that's not Christian.
Oh, yeah. I mean, don't get me started on that stuff, because when I look at the deception game, come on, folks, it's going on across the globe. It goes from religion to corporations to governments. And when you look at the religions, they are corporations in the name of God. And man's God with a little g, by the way, not the big universal consciousness, not the big generator of the universe, because the big generator of the universe doesn't need money. It doesn't need to control and manipulate the masses. Man does. Man wants to do that.
Religion of all kinds is big business, for sure.
Oh, absolutely it is. Yeah, I mean, I watch this whole thing play itself out, and I'm an observer and I'm a secret witness. But I tell you what, to me it's very frustrating and disturbing to watch people allow themselves to be manipulated like this without even trying to ascend to a higher level of consciousness and get themselves out of this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what I was referring to earlier about people just watching sports on TV and that's all they do. I mean, it's exactly what you're talking about. They're not even trying to make themselves better or make anything else better or get out of this false reality.
No, it's really a dream. Yeah, I see it as a matrix and a false reality of a dream that we don't belong in, a dream that's been created by someone else for us or for this, whatever, every unit that's here. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I'll tell you what I would suggest for people is to really awaken to this illusion and really start navigating to higher levels of consciousness. And the only way you can do that is through the celestial mechanics of the universe. I mean, that's where you're going to get truth, because everything else is censored and it's a lie. You cannot go by the database of man. Man is a liar. The Akashic records will not lie to you, but mankind will. And we've noticed this. I mean, can you imagine how we are being deprived of a lineage with Mars or any other planet because of these imbeciles who want to control and manipulate the masses and think that it's for our benefit not to give us the information? Excuse me? I'm a star being, and I'll take whatever information I want. I'm not going to have somebody tell me how or what to think or speak. It's just like, I can go on and on about that, let me tell you. So,
well, like all pathological liars, they often start believing their own lies.
Yeah, well, they really do. And the thing is, they're not God. They're people that work for a living. They have jobs. They are employees to a corrupt government that is dysfunctional. And whatever it is they're trying to hoard, insofar as information goes, isn't going to get them very far if they don't have the spiritual evolution. And that's the bottom line. And what I've seen with these agencies is that they don't have the spiritual evolution. If they did, they wouldn't be censoring like they are. That's the bottom line. And you know what? The people are a byproduct of man. So if they don't like what these people have become on this world, well, then they look in the mirrors and they say, well, this is what we taught them. These are the religions we forced down their throats. This is the government we've shoved down their throats. This is the lifestyle we've shoved down their throats. And now they don't like the people, and now they want to exterminate the majority of people on the planet. Well, you know what? Like I said, once again, look in the mirror, because it's just like input and output, folks. This is what they've created. I hope they're happy with it. I should let you talk.
I guess they're not happy with it. I don't know if they know what they want. They're crazy.
No, I think they're psychotic. Yeah, I do, and I do think they're psychotic, and I kind of wonder, because I've been through a lot of the covert technology stuff, and I understand how psychotronic programming works. It does make people fracture. and it does make them break. And it would probably create a psychosis in some weak people who are not spiritual. So I can only imagine the majority of these people that work in these agencies are just dysfunctional psychotics and functioning psychotics and liars, compulsive liars. But then again, you have to ask yourself, there's got to be some good people at NASA. You know, when I was growing up, I used to really love NASA. I thought, wow, they're so cool, and look at the shuttle.
I do too.
Yeah, I mean, you don't.
I think there are some good people at NASA, and there's always infighting between the good people that want this information out and the people that want to cover it up. They have released some unaltered photographs of Mars to the media, and I can't help but think that was the doing of the good people in NASA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're desperately trying to leak the information, and you kind of understand that they're probably being threatened, or their families are being jeopardized, or something, or there's bullying going on to some degree. Otherwise, they would come out and tell the truth, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I would think so. I mean, I talked to a couple of people in NASA during an open house at JPL a few years back, and getting into some of the stuff about Mars, they made it clear that they didn't want to get political, quote unquote, or say anything that would jeopardize their jobs or make their management unhappy. So there's definitely a lot of coercion going on in NASA, in my opinion. I mean, you can see that pretty easily if you go over and start talking to people.
Right, and now of course they're privatizing a lot of things. So you have the space stations, or international space stations, and this and that. A lot of people are just trying to do it independently. I mean, there's that Mars mission that's being set up right now. I mean, that's privatized, I believe.
Well, the space program started 50 years ago. We're getting to the point where just the normal rocket-based technology is getting cheap enough where big companies can afford it, or large groups of individuals can get together and afford it. So
right.
The government's not going to be able to keep this secret forever. I mean, eventually they will send private manned and unmanned missions to Mars and uncover what's going on there. So they may as well just release it now. But my feeling is they'll wait till the last minute and
I agree.
Either the aliens or private individuals to disclose.
Yeah, it's an oh by the way moment, Oh, by the way. Well, don't bother telling us because we already know is really what I have to say to them.
Well, they actually have announced it in a backhanded way. I mean, they've the information's out there. Anybody wants to research it. They've even had TV specials that I think were at least partially funded by the government in the past, or they released everything, including alien abduction and the whole 9 yards, but they just made it look so ridiculous that nobody believed it. But then that was kind of a CYA moment, if you ask me, so that if it ever did get out later on, they could say, well, we announced it back in 1996 or whatever the case might be.
Right. Well, I mean, and take a look at all these people that have had abductions or inductions and contactees. I mean, you can say part of that's my lab, it's a military thing, and then other parts are real, true, legitimate, off-world species. So there's a lot happening. We've been visited for a very long time, and we have that industry.
Like we discussed on previous shows, I mean, the people that have a lot of alien activity are often re-abducted by the Black Project government agencies to kind of spy on the aliens and make sure and try to find out what the aliens are up to.
Right. Well, that would explain national security, because anything that's connected to extraterrestrials will be a national security issue. So that would explain why they track abductees and contactees. Yeah. For sure.
And the NSA considers it a major national security issue, and they, by the way, have legal jurisdiction over all alien activity in the U.S. and probably several other countries as well.
You have to ask yourself, why are
most of the reported men in black are NSA agents?
And you have to ask yourself, why are they so threatened? What is it about an extraterrestrial that really scares them, huh? I actually laugh at that. I smell their fear. And I'm kind of laughing about it because it's like, what are you guys so scared of, huh? What do you think, Steve?
Well, the ETs are powerful people. They're thousands of years ahead of us, and they can come and go in our airspace without us even knowing about it if they want to. So that scares people with a fear-based, paranoid mindset. I
agree. And also, that's our lineage. That should be very scary to them because that's our celestial heritage. I have news for them. This is a suit. We all occupy a nice little space suit that, you call it a body. You can call it whatever you want. But there's a life force that's connected and interconnected into every universe and star system that's under intelligent spiritual control by source, what we call source, whatever you want to call that design. So, I mean, literally, they're kind of out of their league, and they're wasting their time in the illusion of time, if you ask me, by doing what they're doing. They're kind of backpedaling and being, it's non-productive, if you ask me.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. What they're doing is very non-productive. I mean, they've nearly succeeded in ruining our economy, so that's the opposite of being productive, that's for sure. Announcing this information would stimulate the economy a lot more than keeping it secret.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. And, they keep saying, well, we don't have free energy. And I've heard this for so many times, I don't know how many times over I've heard people say, oh, we never had free energy. It doesn't exist. That's a crock. Of course we have free energy. I mean, Tesla showed us that a long time ago. And, of course, it's been, confiscated by certain areas of people that just want to control and manipulate. But in the meantime, they're fracking. They're destroying the environment. They're doing all sorts of unnecessary things they don't need to do if they would just open that door and allow this bigger energy to connect in to this world.
Well, the truth is the zero-point energy is responsible for all the physical forces of nature. Without the zero-point energy, the universe didn't exist. Mm-hmm. And there are several ways to extract it. Anybody that says otherwise is misinformed, I'm sorry to say. I mean, we could have had so-called free energy or zero-point energy systems 50 years ago if we wanted to.
Exactly. Well, I think they did into the black. Yeah, they're in the black space program for sure, and that's the thing. It went into another division. What happened was there was a breakaway, obviously, and so we've got the black space program where nobody gets information on, and then of course there's this other thing where we're fed the illusion. Well, this illusion is not good enough for me, so I don't know if it's good enough for everybody else on this world, but it certainly doesn't work for me. Not at all.
Well, for example, John Hutchison has a Hutchison power cell. He calls it, where it puts out it's like a battery that puts out energy continuously and doesn't require any input whatsoever. Mm-hmm. It doesn't put out a lot of power. It's like 0.3 volts and a tenth of an amp, but if you put enough of them together, it would produce a useful output with no input of fuel.
Exactly.
And that could be easily perfected into something that would produce a lot more power, I would think.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, and he's another one who basically you never hear about him because everybody ignores him, but yet they steal his patents too. They've been invading him for a long time. I've been trying to get him on my show. I'll still get him on over here. But yeah, I mean, an incredible mind. He's really brilliant when it comes down to it.
Yeah, I've tried to talk to him about it, but they're shy about doing public speaking anymore.
Yeah, I've noticed that also, and I think a lot of it has to do with something's happening where people are getting I don't want to say harassed, but something's happening for sure because people are kind of shutting up when it comes to the free energy. I told you a friend of mine was working with Tesla coils. He was doing incredible work with cancer patients, and he died 3 months after I interviewed him, okay? So I thought it was suspicious, the death. I'll tell you that point blank. So I'm not surprised at all. I think that there's some real sick people on this world that'll do anything to keep everybody limited. And, it's just like the game's over as far as I'm concerned, and I'm glad you're out here talking about all of this information. I mean, the work you've been doing with contactees and implant analysis and just even carrying the torch for the late Dr. Leir is so appreciated on so many different levels. And then, of course, Mars, I think, is a huge thing. I mean, because there's a lot there that's not being relayed to the people. And I find that if we would just open up that door and show everybody what's happening on that planet, I think it would change everything.
Well, I wrote a report on Mars I'd like to refer everybody to. This is in front of a computer. It's on the Alien Scalpel website, www.alienscalpel.com, Roger's old website, and it's also on my website, alienevidence.inc.webs.com. That shows a lot of pictures and basically my opinion about Mars and the fact that Mars has a blue sky, and it's amazing how much NASA argues with people that says the color's not right and the press release photos are showing. I mean, it's a no-brainer. They got color calibration charts on the rovers and every spacecraft that's landed on Mars since Viking. Mm-hmm. And the American flag that's on each spacecraft is a pretty good color chart in itself. And all you basically have to do is change the color of the point where the flag looks normal or the color calibration chart looks normal, and that should be pretty much what you're going to see on Mars as far as the color is concerned. Mm-hmm. So it should be almost natural. I mean, not quite, but it's pretty close. And they actually argue with that simple logic.
Are they arguing because they're just stupid, or are they just plain stubborn? I mean, what is their problem? Why are they arguing?
They're stubborn. I think the lower people in NASA have actually been brainwashed into believing that's the case, and the higher ups are trying to promulgate this myth because they don't want people to see all the green on Mars, all the lichen vegetation, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the world square too, right?
The best way to cover up green is to just put a lot of red into the image.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense right there. And I did mention to you there was something that was some kind of a light that was showing up on Mars. I noticed Mike Barra had it posted on his blog, and I don't know if you got a chance to look at that or not.
No, I didn't.
If you do check it out and let me know what your take is. When I first saw it, I thought it was some kind of a Photoshop, and I really don't know. I guess it could be legitimate, but I'm very skeptical. I am so skeptical these days. So don't know what it is.
Well, like I mentioned on the phone earlier today, the Viking orbiter actually photographed what looked like a dome on the surface of Mars, but had a light inside back in 1976. The sun had already gone down when the shot was taken, so it was obviously giving off its own light. It wasn't a reflection. Mm-hmm. So that's one piece of evidence that led me to believe that Mars is still inhabited at a low population density.
Right, that makes a lot of sense also. So what is your impression of the faces of Mars?
Oh, I think there's no question they're artificial. I mean, Van Flander did an analysis where he concluded that the odds were billions to one against them being natural objects. That the face and the pyramids nearby on Cydonia, and there's shapes and pictures in the ground and other faces and all kinds of stuff all over Mars that on Earth would, in a heartbeat, be said to be artificial.
Right.
I don't see why different rules should apply. I just because it's Mars.
Exactly. I agree with you on that one. And do you really see it as a face? Because sometimes I look at it and I don't see a face. I do see what people are looking at, but I see it differently. I was wondering what you see when you look at the face of Mars.
Well, I think it looks very much like a face myself. And one side of it's kind of caved in, either through age or possibly due to the warfare we were mentioning before. But the one side of it looks very much face-like. There's actually teeth in the mouth and a pupil in the eye, and the odds against that happening by chance are literally billions to one.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no such thing. And insofar as the warfare goes, you have to ask what happened to these people or these beings, whatever you want to call them. Did they just go elsewhere? Did they come here? Or did they go underground, like maybe you suggested that they might be underground?
Well, nobody knows. I mean, there's some evidence that from the Mars Global Surveyor shots, there's underground habitation. There's that one or more shots from the Viking orbiter, one of the Viking orbiters, and
right.
Some of them may have come here. Some people have reported that there's Martians on Earth. There's no proof one way or the other of that, but
right.
There certainly is some reason to believe from the data we have now that Mars is currently inhabited. So we just go from there, and we need more information to know exactly what went on. But it seems logical that some of them must have come here.
Well, you know, it's interesting to me, and I've said this before, I mean, just because you don't detect them with your scanners doesn't mean they're not there. And another thing is if they're vibrating at a different frequency, you won't see it. You won't see them, and you won't see the craft. I mean, that's another thing. I mean, that's why multidimensional consciousness and what we call psychic vision is really important, because once you start adapting to other frequencies, you're able to see beyond the realm of linear vision. So that's where vibration frequency is very significant insofar as detecting other life forms.
Well, we in the UFO community have reason to believe that aliens have several methods of remaining undetected. They can actually bend the light around their craft so they're truly cloaked. Mm-hmm. Or they can cloak themselves in the visual spectrum, or they can just telepathically. They're true telepaths and have developed telepathic technology to a very high degree. They can make telepathically make people not notice that they're there, or they can make people think that it's something other than what it is. They can make them think it's a helicopter or a normal aircraft or any number of things. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I agree with that too.
If UFOs are seen by certain individuals, 99% of the time they wanted to be seen by those individuals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that also. And what about transmissions? Any word on transmission? You know darn well there's got to be a signal coming from Mars.
Well, Tesla said he picked one up back in 1899 in
right.
the Colorado Springs experiment.
Yeah.
People thought he was really out there at that time. That's why they started calling him a mad scientist. Mm-hmm. But I have great faith, and I if he was still alive, I'd have great faith in the man. And if he said he received something from Mars, then he probably did.
Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer that we have the technology and that we've been in communication with a machine language with Mars. Now, that's my own impression.
Well, his type of technology, where he was sending signals through the Earth, he could send signals or electricity anywhere in the world with either his Warden Cliff Tower or his Colorado Springs experiment. Mm-hmm. And there's no reason to think that you could not use the entire Earth as an antenna for ELF scalar signals.
Absolutely.
And communicate with other planets that way easily.
Right. I think he actually
will also travel faster than light.
Yeah. You're right. And he actually, I believe, before he did transfer out, he did actually set the planet up for that, even though they tried to confiscate it and probably shut it down. I do think the planet is wired already. I think that's the legacy he left behind. And I also get that that's something that's going to be activated through source energy and maybe the galactic center. Now, that's my own theory. You can take it for what it's worth.
I know that the U.S. government took his system and rebuilt it back in the 1960s for communicating with our missile submarines at sea of the submerged.
Exactly. And Steve, we're heading for a break real quick. We'll be right back. Stay tuned, everybody. Ravenstar's Witching Hour.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all!
See how the trouble you've started?
Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven, and I'm here with my special guest, Steve Colbern, my alien brother from another mother. Hey, Steve, I'm so glad you're here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm appreciating hearing you. And
my pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah, you're brilliant, and I love listening to your scientific mind because it just spins my wheels in the right direction. So thank you for being you. That's very important. It's rare. It's hard for people to be themselves, sometimes, and I think it's really important that people shine their bright intellect, shall we say? So you were talking about the Tesla technology associated with the submarines, is that right?
Yeah, the U.S. government in the 1960s rebuilt Tesla's Wardenclyffe and Colorado Springs type system in order to communicate with submerged submarines at sea, and that was one of the things one of the first things Tesla did with it. He reportedly communicated with a submerged submarine in the Mediterranean in the 1930s. With a less sophisticated version of the, maybe it was the Wardenclyffe tower used for that, but in any event, he used it for that purpose as well, so he demonstrated that ability. And that was probably the only thing about the system that interested the U.S. government. One interesting thing about that type of a system, too, though, is that you get out more power than you put in. That's why he called it this magnifying transmitter. It was capable of transmitting electricity or communication anywhere in the world and putting out more power than was put in.
That makes a lot of sense. And they're still deploying it, of course. But, it's fine if they use it for the positives and not the negatives. I don't have a problem with technology at all. It's just how it's been deployed throughout the centuries,
Well, J.P. Morgan initially financed the construction of the Wardenclyffe Tower, and then when he found out exactly what it was for and what it was capable of, he immediately pulled Tesla's funding because he didn't want a source of electricity that was that cheap that could not be metered.
That's so sickening to me.
Yeah, it is very sickening. They want only large centralized power sources that have to have wires so that you know exactly who the electricity is being delivered to and make sure everybody's paying for it.
It's you know what it reminds me of, Steve? It's like we have supercomputer minds, we have souls that are infinite and immortal, and these guys want to sit there and nickel and dime us to death about things that we naturally have accessible, by universal law.
Wouldn't it be great if your electric bill were if there were no wires to look at and your electric bill were half or a fourth what it is today, or maybe even less than that? All you would do is stick a pole in the ground with a few capacitors tuned to the right frequencies, and you can power your house.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the beauty of it. Yeah, and nowadays it's just
environmentally destructive, and there'd be a lot of advantages to it.
Well, I really believe we need to do that. I don't know how it's going to happen, but that's what really the solution to this equation on Earth is, that we need to do that. We need to come forward with the free energy and go in the direction we were supposed to go in. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen because it seems to me like everything is going down the sewer. But if it means terraforming and going to another planet to do it, then so be it. But I swear to you, that's really what needs to happen. Nothing's going to get resolved on this world until we start moving in the direction of Tesla and on a positive level. And getting away from all this, psychotronic warfare and all the garbage and all the manipulation, all the wars. It's all about money. It's all about greed. I mean, you know it and I know it.
Yeah, well, we need to have people that are in the know band together. If there's enough of us, they can't kill us all. So, really, we need to be free. Ultimately, we need to be free, not just of certain technologies, but of the misguided notion on this planet that it's okay for a power elite that's less than 1% of the population to own everything, including the other 99%. Mm-hmm. That's one notion that the ETs are terrified is going to escape this world, and the other is violent religions like Islam. They don't want that to escape into the rest of the galaxy either.
It's really wild. Well, you know what? I get a sense that, people do need to be deprogrammed. Talk about mind control. I think everybody needs to be deprogrammed from the Earth Collective and start reprogramming with universal harmonics. That's my take. I think there's been too much mind control. There's been too much manipulation through religions and false belief systems. And, you can say, well, the Bible says this and the Bible says that. And I don't judge people for what their beliefs are, but I will tell you, take a good look and see if that Bible wasn't written or channeled by an entity. And if it was, be very careful what you're doing, people, because don't act out in malicious ways if an entity is telling you to do something through biblical works. And I will tell you, and not to come down on the Bible, but it's censored. There's a lot of data in there that's not there, and people are getting lost. Just like anything else. I mean, if you read something, if you have a recipe for something and you don't have the entire ingredient, be careful, okay? That's all I'll say to everybody. I'm sure you would agree.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like recklessness across the globe. I see people with little pits, not pits, but little pieces and fragments of information that they don't understand what the heck's going on, and they're just they're not understanding the bigger equation of things, and that's a dangerous thing to do. That's a very dangerous thing to have little tiny pieces of something and then try to run with it. And you have to have the facts, and I just don't see people doing that.
Well, as certain people have said, there's nothing more dangerous than a dabbler.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
He doesn't have all the facts, as you say, and tries to do something.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of, well, I could go on about that, obviously, but I've heard from a lot of different scientists that they've suggested that we live in a dead universe, and it comes down to, have you heard of that before? That we don't have any extraterrestrial neighbors, and that this is an entire...
Oh, sure. I've heard of it. I think it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I mean,
I agree.
This evidence from Mars contradicts that, and there's also other lines of evidence of the infrared spectrum of cosmic dust, for example, is almost exactly like the infrared spectrum of dried bacterial spores.
Mm-hmm.
What about that comet that hit back in 2000 and spread some red organism all over the Kerala district of India? That organism was not even life as we know it. There was no DNA in it. It could thrive at 300 degrees Celsius, and it seemed a perfect organism to be suited for life in space.
Yeah, I agree.
What about the balloon-borne experiment that the Indian Academy of Sciences did back in the 1990s, where they measured the density of bacteria between sea level and 100,000 feet using a balloon? It turned out that the density of bacteria goes down between sea level and 50,000 feet, as one would expect, but after that, the density starts going up again. So obviously, bacteria are falling through space.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's partner that did the experiment, Fred Hoyle, is one of the smartest people that ever walked the planet. He would make another Tesla Model S. He's an astronomer. He swore up and down that there were bacteria on comets. He had data that indicated that there were disease outbreaks that would parallel close patches of comets by Earth, and he may well have been correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get the sense that that's not correct. Also, with a dead universe, I don't see it as dead as it's alive, obviously.
I rather think that microbial life is everywhere, and everywhere you have some air and some water, you're going to have complex life forms as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's been my working hypothesis for some time, anyway.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because, to me it's all about consciousness anyway and intelligent energy. So that there's so many different facets to what we think is alive and living. And like I said before, if it's frequency based, if it's vibrational based, then obviously there's a lot more to that than what people realize. But yeah, I wanted
beyond that, the entire universe probably is intelligent. That's what you could call it, God, or call it what you will. But
exactly,
the entire universe probably has some sort of consciousness to it.
Oh, I totally agree with that, and we're an extension of that. So how can we? We can't be separate from that which we are. That's the bottom line, and we are an extension of the universe, whether we like it or not. We're a miniature universe within. So I think Philip K. Dick comes to mind, and I mention him often because I love Philip K. Dick's work, and of course VALIS, Vast Active Living Intelligence System. Remember? I don't know if you ever read that or not. But anyways, that's really what it boils down to is something with an intelligent design, that we are all connected to and interconnected with. And that's why I think when man starts to act under his free will to control, manipulate the masses to such an extent with this type of censorship, whether it's NASA or Mars, it's got to backfire. It's going to backfire. It's against universal flow.
Yeah, I just wish that would backfire pretty soon. I'm tired of this whole system, just like you are.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. It gets to the point where
off a cliff, basically, and they're headed for an economic point of no return, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Well, part of the ascension process, if you look into ascension, this isn't New Age, by the way, this is mystical alchemy, but the ascension process itself, is about letting go of the old and linear programming and embracing the new higher consciousness. And in order to do that, the systems need to fail. In other words, they all need to go away. Money needs to go away. Governments need to go away. Religions need to go away. And you see that happening. I hate to say it, but it is happening in alignment with universal law, although it feels uncomfortable to everybody. So that part's...
Well, just about everybody I know agrees that this system has to die before something else comes into its place that's better. This system won't let you fix it. It's self-correcting to be as bad or worse as it was before if anybody tries to change it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think so. I think it just needs to be flushed, quite honestly. And the whole thing is it's at the point of no return, and that's on a global level. There's just no point.
If the game is corrupt enough, eventually somebody ought to just turn over the table and start one someplace else.
Mm-hmm. And we can do that, certainly can as a race. But that's once again, it takes action and motion, and it takes the energy to do it. But I think the universe is actually moving that. Now, a lot of people are all superstitious about this Grand Cross and this and that. I was born under a Grand Cross, so, I guess it's a good time for me.
You were born on what?
I was born under the Grand Cross that they're talking about coming up. So it's like...
You mean with the 4 lunar eclipses this year? Or?
Yeah, well, I was born under a Grand Cross, and my birthday's on the 20th of April. So, basically I have some... what people are afraid of, I'm like, well, it's like not a big deal. Literally it's just another transition, that's all. But I think people need to make, they need to make friends with change, and they need to start moving on and beyond their programming. And that's really what it boils down to, is that they're being programmed and they're being triggered by governments, by the actions of governments from day to day. You see it, I see it. And it's like, you just got to look at it for what it is. You see the man behind the curtain, you pull the curtain and you watch it and you say, this is enough of this crap. We're done. That's it. It's a relationship that needs to sever.
Anything special happening on May 4th? That's my birthday.
I'll have to check it out for you, but I'll be sure to give you an update. I do timeline astrology for those who don't know, and so I obviously know my own chart better than anybody could ever assess. But it's funny because I hear all these people, going on and on about the Grand Cross and this and that, and, it's not as bad as what people think it is. It's basically where you're at in your perception of reality, and what your belief systems are is really what is going to be the foundation of what's going to happen to your reality. So,
When is the Grand Cross occurring, on April 20th?
Supposedly on my birthday, yeah. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens. But, I'm sure, to me it's just like a reboot. I'm fine. If I leave this planet, I'd be
happening to
extremely
the
happy.
Earth right now. There's a lot of earthquakes going on, a lot of big earthquakes hitting. Some people were saying that we're going through the plane of the galaxy, and perhaps the density of the continuum is greater here, and there's more heat coming out of the Earth as a result.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense also. And I don't know if you're familiar with the photon belt or not, but I was just talking to a guest of mine on my other show last week about the photon belt and a lot of things. And, a lot of people say, well, that's foo-foo ascension stuff. It's really not. It's actually legitimate ascension, higher consciousness data. And what
photon belt is probably a different way of saying the same thing.
Right, it is. We all speak the same language. That's the thing. You just have to, kind of reconnect it all. But the same thing, the source energy with the galactic center and things that are moving this energy. And what people don't realize is that the Earth is not alone. The Earth is a set. It's moving as a set with other planets and star systems. So we're all navigating to these levels of consciousness together. It's not, this Earth isn't isolated from anyone or anything. And that's what people tend to forget, that we are all interconnected and interweaved with these other races, species, planets. And that's why when they try to censor this data, I'm like, you guys are stupid. There's no reason for you to do that. Not at all. I think what it would do is shatter the belief systems of a lot of people, and it would really blow their minds to find out, what was happening, the civilizations on Mars, or even if they were our ancestors. Some people can't even grasp that, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's the same type of people that were represented by that lady I was talking about that believed my UFO information but didn't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like, well, I think denial is one thing. They like to live in those little little fuzzy bubbles, rather, and that doesn't work for some people. But, yeah, that's really interesting. So what else do you know about Mars that you'd like to share with us? Anything that comes to mind that you find is significant?
Well, there's a huge... the face on Mars in Cydonia is not the only one. There's also a Nefertiti face. I don't know offhand where on the planet that is, but it's a shallow relief face carved into the surface of Mars. It looks like an Egyptian woman with one of those long stovepipe type hats they used to wear on.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite detailed. There's eyelashes and lips and just this complete never detailed earring. It's
I saw
quite,
that.
obviously artificial.
I actually saw that somewhere. I can't remember where I saw it. It might have been on Facebook, but that's interesting. So that's a legitimate picture?
Oh, yeah. It's been photographed 3 or 4 times.
Okay. I always wonder.
It's something on the surface. It's not a trick of light and shadow or anything. It appears to be, come to think of it, it appears to be colored rocks or something that was spread on the surface to form this thing. It's got to be artificial. I don't see any other way around that. And there's also a face that's something like 20 miles wide in the Sirius Major region of Mars, one largest dark area of Mars, and that was taken by the Mars Global Surveyor, and that's in my a picture of that is in my paper on Mars, and NASA has been sitting on these things, and a lot of these are on the official record, but people just haven't found it because you have to wade through thousands of images to find these things.
Or you have to talk to somebody direct with NASA. But did you say that before NASA gets their images, the NSA looks through them?
Oh, absolutely. When the image comes through the radio telescope from the spacecraft, there's computer programs and NSA agents that are at the source to tamper with the image and take out anything that looks artificial or have human beings there to take out anything that the computers miss and basically have final approval before it goes to NASA. Wow,
that's really pathetic. When you think about that, and then it reminds me of the telescope that they use, at the Vatican and everything else that just gets completely censored, with information, or false information, rather.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get uncensored information from space. I mean, the astronauts were seeing UFOs, for example, almost every mission, but you hardly ever heard about that.
Right. Exactly.
Back in the Apollo, Gemini, and Mercury programs.
Well, weren't they going through some sort of a brainwashing type session afterwards, or something that would compromise their memory?
I heard some of them were. I heard in particular Gordon Cooper went through a lot of brainwashing.
Yeah.
And there was a period when they could talk about it back in the 70s, and then they clamped down on them and told them don't say anything, lose attention, blah, blah, blah. So that's why we haven't heard anything from the astronauts lately concerning UFOs. But it was on TV that the Apollo 11 crew saw a UFO on the way to the moon. They were talking about it on TV, and Buzz Aldrin talked about it a few years ago again. And there's another incident where James McDivitt saw a UFO in orbit on Gemini 4, I think it was. But there's good reason to believe they were seeing these things almost every mission in the early days of the space program. And even during the shuttle program, they were seeing things. They had a NASA channel back in the 90s that gave continuous coverage of the space shuttle missions, and one of them showed a UFO, and they took the thing off the air after that. That was a pretty famous incident. Right.
Yeah. They're always there to just wipe away all the truth, aren't they? I just get tired of it, quite honestly. Well, and also, not that this is part of the topic, it's not, but that plane issue, that whole thing with the plane disappearing and all that garbage, to me, that's just a distraction. It's just basically, you see how many people are focusing their energy on that and totally just, focusing on the illusion and spinning their wheels in the mud with mainstream drama from day to day. That's just a perfect example of deception, a deception game in motion.
Yeah, well, they do that with a lot of things. Every grisly unsolved murder that comes to the attention of the police, they put that all over the media to distract people. Yeah,
I get the feeling that everybody who's working a quote-unquote mainstream job is just literally spinning their wheels in the mud, even if they think they're doing something important. I mean, when it comes down to it, every single profession on the globe can be altered with instantaneous it's like a surgeon who can actually heal without using technology that he's exposed to from day to day. You know what I mean? It's like we're really living in a backward society. It's really going in a vortex instead of...
Oh, yeah. I feel like I'm a scientist from Captain Kirk's time sometimes that's stuck in the 21st century. I mean, the company I work for, it's like, you feel like telling them, can't you set your sights a little higher on, what you're trying to accomplish here? And it's like even the companies, it's not just the government, even the companies are deliberately dumbing themselves down to avoid stepping on the toes of the powers that be.
Yeah, I see that also. And that's what's really sad is that people try so hard to get jobs with these corporations, and then the people that are running the corporations are really incompetent, and they're not even qualified for their positions. And so then, you look at it, but it is a dumbing down, and it's a dumbing down on a global level. I'm thinking to myself, are they smarter in other countries? I don't know. I mean, but from what I've seen here in America, this is embarrassing. And I'm not saying everybody in America is not intelligent, but I'm saying, man, you guys, we used to be a real bright country, and I'm telling you, it's not happening anymore. So
we have gone downhill. I don't know if they're any brighter in other countries, but we're definitely as a society less intelligent than we used to be.
Yeah, and that's really scary because they don't have the intellect, and then they're getting censored, so they don't even have a database of truth. So what's left? I mean, honestly, when you think about it,
the most scary thing is that they have a bunch of political hacks running things now, whereas before they had some pretty bright people running things in this country. Now it's not what you know, it's who you know, and all that crap. So they have people at very high levels in government that they wouldn't have trusted with a potato gun in those positions before.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what. I guess we were supposed to be born on this timeline, but man, I'm not coming back to this planet. I've said that before. That's it for me, man. Don't ever try to get me back here. It's not happening. This planet, it's a floating asylum is what I call it. It's crazy. I just keep my sights on the universe.
It always was, but it's getting worse. So I totally agree with you.
Right. Well, when you think about it, I mean, if it wasn't really always that bad, and even with the quote-unquote Atlantean or whatever you want to call an advanced civilization, we had the Atlantean society. I don't think it was really that bad. Maybe there was a misuse of technology, and the city went down and this and that. But at one point, they must have had a very advanced, higher consciousness, celestial design. And I can't for the life of me figure out how it could have gotten this bad so quickly over the centuries.
Well, I think there was a technological civilization on Earth before that ended 12,000 years ago. There's quite a bit of evidence that that's the case. I think they were more advanced than we are now, and I think they had telepathy and more advanced consciousness and such, but we evolved since then, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Well, we are naturally telepathic. I mean, I can confirm that, plus the other artificial intelligence stuff that they try to deploy. But that's the sad part of it is everything we have that's a natural given, that's a natural gift, they try to mimic or create or do a better job of manifesting through their false technology. And it's just, it's pathetic when you think about it. So my sense is that they're trying to hoard a lot of archives of extraterrestrial data so that they can manipulate the masses even further. And what's your take on a Project Bluebeam? You think that's going to happen, like a false, maybe extraterrestrial dance?
Project what?
Like a false extraterrestrial event where they're synthetic extraterrestrials, not off-worlders, but actually manufactured by covert intelligence governments to create a false flag.
They could try something like that. I don't really know what they would gain by it. It's not their only possibility, but it's not something I think is going to happen personally. Yeah,
I don't think so either, but I do know that they've been doing a lot of, the transhumanism thing is really big, let's put it that way. And with transhumanism goes an artificial design which can be a mimic to extraterrestrials. So, I'm very skeptical about a lot of the stuff that they're doing these days with the modification of things. So, but what do you think the end game is insofar as our world?
I think the powers that be want they want to reduce the population according to the Georgia Guidestones, and that's basically their plan. They've announced it through that monument, and they want to basically just retain the people that will say how high when they say jump, and then the ETs also want to reduce the population, but they want to retain their abductees and hybrids to repopulate the Earth. So it should be interesting.
Yeah.
It goes on. But
and
one way or the other, I think the population is going to be reduced, as we discussed before.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, I think it's already being kind of reduced. Actually, I see it as more of a slow bleed than a fast, quick death, unfortunately.
The chemtrails and the cancer viruses are spreading, and the crap they put in the food and the dangerous drugs that they're pushing on people. It's all to reduce the population, in my opinion.
Right.
And the latest thing is they're trying to cause food shortages by approving all these pesticides that kill bees.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Well, they've done so much damage to the DNA through all this manipulation and all the things that they're doing. And, of course, the Fukushima thing is in the dust. Everybody doesn't pay attention to it. I have a sister on Maui, and I ask her all the time. I said, well, what's the story out there? I mean, what are you guys doing? Do you have a Geiger counter? And she says it's like they just pretend that nothing's going on. They don't give them any information. They say there's nothing to worry about. So, I mean, that's what she's being told on Maui. But I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. If there's something that's life-threatening, go ahead.
So far here in California, the radiation from Fukushima has hit rather inhomogeneously. In San Francisco, they've got about 30 times normal background, and on the Central Coast and around Oxnard, where I live, it's pretty much normal background. So for some reason, the San Francisco area has been hit hard.
That's interesting. Yeah, well,
I was up around Oregon, Washington's being really hard as well.
That could explain a lot of other things too that's going on. I know people have been having respiratory issues, things that are maybe chemtrail related, chemtrail flus, but also something else going on with the lungs and the capacity to breathe. I think there's a lot happening. I get the feeling our atmosphere is really bad right now, and I almost feel like we don't have an atmosphere. And of course, I live up high in the mountains. I live at a pretty good elevation, but I mean, I'm used to thin air, but there's something else happening. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I think thin air might be good for starseeds.
Yeah, really.
I like space.
I don't think. Well, you know what? Another thing is too. There's been a lot of people have said we've been dropped off here. In other words, we don't belong here on Earth, and I kind of get that too. That maybe we're just not calibrated for this planet. Maybe that's why we have so many issues while we're here.
Yeah, that very well could be.
Yeah, I mean, it's my take that I do better elsewhere.
Yeah, there seem to be various types of starseeds, and some do better here than others, but in general, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I totally think we're on the wrong planet, which is kind of a bummer. But maybe this isn't a planet at all. Maybe it's like a terraformed asteroid. Who knows? Got to use your imagination these days. Tell you what.
Well, I think this is very important. The aliens have announced that this is a very important planet for a lot of species, and they don't want to see it screwed up.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Something needs to give quick then, because right now this is a sad situation. I think, from what I've seen, I think actually the people are in the worst situation. I mean, the planet can recover. I mean, it will go through a transition, but it will recover. But the animals will suffer. And a lot of other things, and the people will obviously suffer. So that's really the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what your impression is on that, but yeah. Have you heard the tale of Earth having 3 moons at one time?
3 moons?
Yeah.
No, I've never heard of that.
I'm just trying to.
I know that they were talking about Earth having small moons orbiting much closer to the planet back in the 1950s, and those I think turned out to be gray motherships. They first discovered them when they developed radar powerful enough to track objects in space. And Clyde Tombaugh was put on the project, and NASA discovered Pluto, and then it kind of went black after that. Nothing more was said about it. So I think they discovered there were alien spacecraft orbiting the Earth.
That's pretty
interesting. As far as 2 other natural moons, no, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I've heard it. I'm going to start doing more research on that. I swear I'm going to have a show on that because I've heard it before, and I saw it once, and I can't find it anymore, the information on it. So. But I'll be definitely looking into that because it's bothering me. It's, how you just get something and you need to keep researching it until you find more information on it. That's where I'm at with it.
Well, the theory about the moon forming from another planet hitting the Earth way back when is correct, and there might have been more than one before it coalesced into one.
Right. And then, of course, everybody... Well, I'm under the impression that that's an artificial moon anyway.
Well, it's definitely partly artificial. I mean, the math is, the figures don't lie. I mean, the thing is at least 30% hollow or empty space, and the data is consistent with a rocky shell, maybe 50 to 100 miles thick, that's quite dense and almost metal-like, with extensive caverns below that, and either no core or a very small core. The NASA model for the interior of the moon is complete fiction.
Yeah. Don't you get
the stranger even than Mars. I mean, it's the strangest moon in the solar system by far.
I think so too, and that's what it is. It's very auspicious. Well, it reminds me of the Death Star too. I think that's where they got their design, didn't they? From Star Wars.
Maybe so. It's a great base. It's a major great base. It's a mining for our sources for sure. Tell you about the Death Star. There's a moon of Saturn called Ipetus or Ipetus that it totally looks like the Death Star in photographs from the Saturn orbiter. Name escapes me at the moment, but check out the pictures of that. It totally looks very much like the Death Star.
Right.
It even has a spot on one side that corresponds to the Death Star's main gun.
Interesting. Well, they call them satellites for a reason. And also, you think about it, it's almost like they're little like transceivers for data and just kind of transmitting the information from planet to planet.
Well, Tom Gooden believes that the entire solar system is a giant scalar interferometer where energy is being passed from one moon or planet or sun to the next, and perhaps that's true.
I think so too. I get that also. Almost like a little, they're what they call the music of the spheres, don't they? Where there's different harmonics associated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that music changes with the position of the planets.
That would make a lot of sense. Yeah. And of course, if the frequency is altered, then something else would happen to the Earth or the planets around them, I would suspect. So if you alter the vibrational frequency code signature of the Earth, then that could be a benefit or not a benefit.
Yeah, makes sense.
I mean, that's just this is theory, obviously, but that's my take on it anyway, because I like sound and I work with frequencies a lot, and that's I know what it can do to people. And of course, we all know that we can heal with frequency and we can destroy with frequency as well.
Yeah,
that's part of it.
Well, that's part of why they never allowed Dr. Royal Life's cancer healing and disease healing system, is because you can also induce disease with the same system if you know what you're doing.
Well, the sad thing is they already deploy, illnesses and sickness onto people. They can remotely take you out and murder you. So they have assassin programs that are remote tactical hardware. So, they're already deploying it.
Well, come to that, Tom Van Flandern, who came up with the theory that Mars was once a moon of the original planet 4 in that orbit, or a similar orbit, died a few years ago of a very fast-paced case of colon cancer, and that seems to be something that a lot of people in the UFO and paranormal field die of.
Yeah, I've noticed that also. Yeah, mysterious illnesses. The past few years, a lot of people have been taken out by strange things, and frequency-based, I would think.
Dr. Van Flandern briefly at the Central Coast UFO Symposium, and that was back in 2008, and he was dead within a year after that.
That's odd.
I guess he just got into cancer before I met him, so.
Wow. That's too bad. Seems like a lot of brilliant minds are transferring out, but yet there are other worlds, there are other universes to dwell in.
We just lost Lloyd Pye. He was the latest victim of their homicidal rage.
Yeah.
I don't think his death was an accident.
How did he die?
Cancer, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, that's too bad. Well, whenever you rub them the wrong way, and the sad thing about them, they're kind of strange. They'll torture you for years and years and years, and then when they decide they want to kill you, they just kill you. They're really strange. They're sick, They don't even have the integrity to take people out like with one shot, like a nice clean takeout. They have to torture first. They're just sickening. I swear. They're not even.
Maybe the killings happen when a new boss comes online and they have to show their toughness or something.
I mean, it's just craziness. And then you look at all these people, these bankers that quote unquote jump from buildings. Excuse me, what the hell's going on with that? What's up with that?
Well, I wish all the bankers had jumped off a building myself. That'd be great.
It's just really wild, though. It's almost like surreal.
It's my friggin' house. I'm not going to forgive him for that anytime soon.
Oh, yeah, that stinks. Yeah, that's no good. Well, it's really corrupt. I'll tell you what, people are fighting just to maintain their own sanity in their homes and their lives. And, I think everybody just wanted to have a nice life. I don't think anybody had any great expectations of doing, having these wonderful, like, super rich lifestyles. But, even for regular people who just want a nice life, it's becoming impossible to even live. It's almost becoming a crime to be alive.
It's becoming obvious they want to wipe out the middle class. It's becoming increasingly difficult to get a middle class lifestyle unless you're lucky or have something going for you beyond the normal Joe. Even people with PhDs are having problems making a living these days.
Oh gosh, I know. I see a lot of people who are very educated who have, yeah. Well, if you don't work for the system and you're not part of the equation of living the lie, then you kind of get cast aside. And especially if you're out here and, talking about stuff that we talk about, well, there's a tendency to get blacklisted, and tell me about that. I mean, I'm well aware of that. So, I mean, if you know too much, it makes people uneasy.
They're just throwing enough good jobs to go around these days, too, which is a scary thing.
Yeah. That's another thing in the U.S. especially, but I guess in other countries you might have better luck, or some of us would. I don't even think so anymore, though. I honestly think the only solution is to just zero out everything, restart it with free energy and higher consciousness, and just restructure everything from ground zero. That's my take anyway. I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime, though. So what do you think about the full moon coming up?
Well, I can hardly wait.
Yeah, I mean the full blood moon.
On April 15th, tax day.
Oh, lovely, isn't it? That's probably why people feel so bad, right? It's the tax thing.
Could be. I'm getting money back. I was keeping my fingers crossed this year.
Well, it's really funny is like don't keep, they pay their taxes to an organization that is illegal to begin with, and I'm thinking, when you really look down on the whole situation, it's really just a fiasco. You're paying outside investors basically. Taxes should never have happened. They should have never had people pay taxes at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I really don't think that the income tax should have ever been levied on individuals.
No, it's basically ridiculous. It's a scam. It's the worst scam of the century. I mean, it's the worst scam in the United States, and people do it.
They never did quite get around the fact that that filing a return is against your right against self-incrimination. But they just kind of sidestep that fact and prosecute people anyway for not filing one. Well,
it's kind of like debtor's prison too. We never used to have one, and now they're trying to recreate one. Pretty soon it'll be illegal to breathe air. Or they'll be privatizing water. When I
was a kid, people would just laugh at you if you'd ever seriously, with a straight face, say that there might be debtor's prison again in this country, and now it's come to pass.
It's ridiculous.
In some states, anyway.
Well, you know what? Prisons make a lot of money. That's why it's all privatized once again. I mean, you're dealing with, that's an industry. It's not about crime. It's about making money, and that's what they're doing. It's ridiculous.
Well, my solution to that would be to let 90% of the prisoners out, bulldoze all the prisons, and just let everybody carry guns. And if somebody's breaking the law, then they get shot.
Right, it's like Mad Max.
Save the money on sending them to prison.
You remember Mad Max, right? The movie.
What?
Mad Max, the movie.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. Literally, it's just every man for himself, or woman for that matter. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's going to be, a lot of people predicted it would be like the Wild Wild West at some point. What's left of the earth. I mean, if you want to look at the breakaway society doing their thing, going off-world, and then whatever's left here has to survive. So,
sounds like fun.
What's that?
Sounds like fun.
Doesn't it? Yeah, lock and load.
More fun than this, anyway.
Well, I think it's all going to get scrapped. I do. I think that we're on a very vulnerable point right now. It's a tipping point right now on this planet, and I think that things are definitely going to shift one way or another. But I have no patience for it. I find it to be a bore, quite honestly. It's frustrating and boring and ignorant and everything I don't like about being here. That's just me, anyway.
Well, these people are for the most part a bunch of panty wastes anyway, so.
So if we went from Mars to talking about other things.
Sometimes.
No, I agree. I mean, I think it's good to communicate this information because you know what? I'm sure there are a lot of people that are listening that resonate with this information. And honestly, if you live too long in the dream, you get sucked into the lie. And so
I'm not talking about our listeners tonight, obviously. I'm just talking about the average person that doesn't care about anything.
Well, it's the people that are listening are usually pretty intelligent that connect into this station. But yeah, totally. It's just that they're all just in la-la land. And there's no patience for it. Even when I came out with the exposing this misuse of technology, I mean, some people can understand it, other people don't, other people are afraid of it. The majority of people don't care unless it happens to them or their family. So I think that's what it boils down to. Unless it happens to you, you're not going to give a damn, and that's really what these people are at. I mean, if you take their television away, they'll come crying. But hey, as long as they have a TV set.
There'd be riots if they took people's television away. But they don't riot over government taking their rights away.
That's just it. They're so conditioned to be spoon-fed that they don't know what it's like to be free. They're not a free race. They're not free.
It's a brave new world.
Yeah, it really is.
Or an unbrave new world, I should say.
Yeah, well.
A cowardly new world.
I feel sorry for them. I have to tell you, I feel sorry for the people that are asleep, that are missing out on truth. I really do, because it's going to screw them in the end. It really will, and they won't get it. They won't get it. You spend your whole life living a lie, and then when you transfer out, you realize it was a lie. Oh my goodness! Thank goodness I know it's a lie now. So when I leave, I'll be real clear in my head.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference. I'll have clarity when I transfer out. I'm not going to be one of these lost souls that'll be like, what happened? What was that program all about? What was a lie? It was a deception. It was a wake-up.
Oh, I'm with you, Solaris. If I had a spacecraft, I'd be out of here.
Well, I have. I'm working on it. I'll swing by and pick you up. I'll get the mothership. Yeah, for sure. And then speaking of motherships, I know we've had. What do you think about all these anomalies that we've had? Like, it seems to me like there's been more and more people have UFO experiences. Do you think that's man-made craft from our governments, or do you think there's something with an off-world?
Well, it's anybody's guess. But my opinion, based on investigating a lot of cases, is that maybe about a third of them are government-made from the secret space program, and the rest are alien.
Mm-hmm. That's real interesting. I'm wondering about...
definitely more alien craft up there than government, in my opinion.
What do you think about the black triangle? You think that's ours?
Some of those are ours, yeah.
Yeah, I get that too.
The really big black triangles are alien.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Do you have any idea? Go ahead. No, I was going to ask if you know what species that is that occupies that craft.
They're great craft, from what I understand.
Interesting.
Most of the alien craft up there are gray that people report seeing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've noticed there's been a lot more activity as of late with people witnessing certain things. And, of course, I'd like to know, my question is, why aren't they interacting? And I know people like to say, well, there's a contract. Well, I'm not buying the contract because we are celestial descendants of these off-world species, which means they have a right and authority to help us out when we're in a situation where we need assistance, basically. If we need backup, then they are obligated to help us. What's your impression of that?
I don't know if they're obligated to help us. In fact, I think that they have kind of a non-interference directive that the only reason that the Greys are able to violate that as much as they have been is so they have permission from the government down here.
Right. I've got go ahead, Steve.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a mystery caller who's not a mystery at all. This is my friend here, Steve Travis. He's also a producer and a host here at Revolution Radio. Steve, how you doing?
Hey, Solaris. Hey, Steve. How are you?
Oh, great. How are you?
Oh, I'm good.
How can we help you? State the nature of the medical emergency, as they say.
I was hearing your frustrated rant about like people not knowing how to be free or whatever, and I had a quick story I wanted to share with you of something that happened to me tonight, which is a good example that you guys can just work off of, if I may, for just a moment.
Sure, but we're getting low on time, so make it fast.
Very fast. Very simple story. So, I live over here in Connecticut. It takes me about an hour or so to get to Brooklyn, New York, and my friend invited me out to a show. Now, I'm a free man. Even though I use my vehicle, I don't carry ID with me. So I go all the way out to Brooklyn with my boy to go to this show down in the city, one of those like bar show kind of things, right? And of course, the bartender or the bouncer at the bar asks me for my ID. I said, I don't carry ID. I'm a free man. And he says, well, I can't let you in without ID. So I'm stuck outside. I wait around for about 5 minutes. I see one of the bartenders come out who I recognize him from the several times I've been to that bar at other shows where I haven't been asked for ID. and I hope that he recognized me. I say, hey man, how's it going, dude? You know me, right? I've been here. I've been to this bar several times. And, and I'm definitely not 16. People like, I got a full beard here. It's just like, there's no way I'm under 21 in anybody's universe. And that's the only thing that they really care about. And he's like, oh no, I'm sorry. That's policy. I'm like, whatever. And it's just like, people are so scared of the cops. They're so scared of like these bureaucrats that come after people. And it's just like, you're turning good people away just because I'm a dignified man. I'm a free man. I want to roam about on my own. I don't need to carry ID. I don't need to answer to anyone but God. You know what I mean? And so
if more people were like you, then we wouldn't have to carry ID.
I got turned down from going into a show that I was invited out to.
Well, that stinks.
Yeah.
That's no good.
Teaching.
You need to stand up to them. Just ignore their directives is the best way to fight them.
I agree. Yeah, do not comply. It's really what it boils down to.
Unfortunately, that's up to the owner of the bar, though.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't talk to like one of the bartenders who's basically in charge of what the bouncer does, and I can't get him to use his noodle instead of just thinking about codes and process procedure. He's all worried about serving to people under 21, which, dude, that's not going to happen with me. And anybody can look at me for 3 seconds and know I am well over 21.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the kind of stupidity we're talking about, and it's growing by leaps and bounds every day.
Yeah, New York's a big part of the mind control. That's a place that really needs to break it in a lot of ways. It's not good enough, that we simply stop and frisk in New York. It has to go further than that. There's a lot of things for the independent businessman, like this little bar, which is nothing to nobody. It's just a great place for metalheads to go hang out like myself. It needs to stop being afraid of these guys. It needs to stand up for something. And it does need social support. Otherwise, I understand why he's got to be afraid. But social support needs to be driven to help these guys get out of those clutches.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, it takes courage to do that, and a lot of the times they don't want. It's also about money, Steve, because these guys will get fined if they don't have an ID from you. That's what it boils down to. It's about money and getting fined, probably.
They're not really going to get fined if they can show that the person was not under 21. I mean, but it's a hassle for them. They don't want to risk the hassle. That's the thing. They need to be
but you know what? The bar truly can't be held liable if all of a sudden, like, the cops come in to raid the place and the answer that I would give if I was there in that situation, it says you have no jurisdiction over me. Then at the end of the day, the bar is off the hook for that very, very reason. Because that's all I'm telling a cop if I ever get pulled over, because I'm traveling. I travel. I don't drive. I'm not participating in traffic or commerce. And, I know who I am now.
Mm-hmm. Does that work for you? I know you've been pulled over before, but has that worked for you in the past?
I haven't been pulled over yet without carrying, but it is not in my future to do so.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I like your photo, by the way. Nice guitar shot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can tell you're a little bit over 21. Yeah.
Just a teeny bit. Even if I wasn't, even if I was, say, 19, right? At the end of the day, if I was 19 and you hear me as I am, at the end of the day, I'm a grown man. I can make my own decisions. I'm aware of my own body, my own mental capabilities. And at the end, and also, if I was 19, maybe I got a fake ID. Guess what? Fake ID or not, you still sold liquor to somebody under 21. But legally, it's like, who cares? Oh, and legally, you're off the hook. And that's part of the moral corruption going on over here.
Yeah, sad to hear that. But, yeah, it is. So it needs to change without a doubt. But I appreciate you calling, Steve.
Yes, thank you. I'll let you finish up with you guys. Great show. I've been listening since the start.
Awesome. Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. That's the one and only Steve Travesty. The only one I allow with a backstage pass to my show. Now, there are quite a few, actually. Okay. But as long as they're nice. So, Steve, I'm so happy to have you on tonight. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I appreciate everything you bring to the table this evening. Is there anything else we didn't get to discuss about Mars that you wanted to mention real brief? And also, let's talk about your website.
Well, wanted to mention that the polar caps on Mars are mostly waterized, as Percival Lowell said, and Oregon astronomer said it's not cold enough for carbon dioxide ice in most places on Mars. It's not nearly as cold as they're saying. NASA's released the real temperature data on Mars, but it's contradicted by the press release temperature data that they put out. Also, whether or not there's life on a certain place is much more determined on Earth, at least, and probably everywhere, by not by how cold it gets in the winter, but how warm it gets in the summer. Mm-hmm. So that's why there's vegetation near the South Pole, the South Pole of Mars in the Antarctic region, because that's what there's the most liquid water in the summertime.
Yeah, that
makes sense. It gets about freezing in for a few months in the summer, and then plants can grow. and in the wintertime, because on Earth, the plants are just dormant and don't grow. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, what is your website one more time? If people want to get a hold of you, how would they do that? What's the best way to do that?
It's www.alienevidenceinc.webs.com, and my email is s_Colbern@yahoo.com.
Excellent. And Steve, are you going to be at the Super Soldier Summit doing implant analysis scans?
Yeah, I plan to go, yeah.
Excellent. Good. Well, I'll see you out there then. And, of course, I'm sure everybody's familiar with Steve. If you're not, check out his work with the implant analysis. Of course, he's done that for me with my documentary DVD, and it's incredible. I really appreciate the work you're doing, Steve, with that as well. And also, one more question I did have for you. If anybody's trying to call on you guys, I'm not going to answer that call because we're getting ready to wrap the show up pretty soon. But do you think Mars has some stargates? And if you do, where would you suspect would be a location?
I really don't know, but if one were to look for such an artifact, I would say near some of the areas that appear to be inhabited or were inhabited in the past, like Cydonia, and in the Sirius Major region, there were some settlements sighted in Hale Crater. Another place where there was some possible civilization evidence, as evidence in the Mars Global Surveyor images. Near the South Pole is another possible habitation. Just near any place where there's beings currently residing or have resided in the past, I would check those areas.
Yeah, I wonder about that myself.
The Cydonia area I would check first.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know what I'm also attracted to are the poles for some reason for navigation, for celestial navigation, and what I would call maybe time dilation portals or something like that where you could actually transfer without a ship. Now, I don't know why, but it just seems to me like those would be the right areas for that, something with a vortex or gravity or anti-gravitational field, natural field. What is your take on that?
I'm not sure, but the poles would definitely be an area where there might be some disruptions in the normal gravitational field. And speaking of stargates, there's a story going around. There's been a story going around for years. The military has a portal whereby people can teleport to Mars, and that they have a permanent base on Mars. I don't know if that's true or not, but it may be.
Well, that's not the jump room, though, right?
The jump room is yeah, I they call it the jump room.
Is that affiliated with? Yeah.
I think it's in Alice Springs, Australia, according to the rumor story.
Well, I've heard about the jump rooms. Obviously, we've all heard about those, and people supposedly doing that. I do know that you can teleport without a doubt. I mean, we've proven that we can do that. So, and it's all about molecular control and also vibrational speed and frequency. Once again, you're dealing with vibrations and harmonics, and when you vibrate things at a certain level, it can teleport. I think it's fascinating, personally. I'd like to be able to teleport somewhere and go home. It's like Star Trek. Everything they had in Star Trek was actually right on. When you think about it. Yeah,
some of the Star Trek movies, Mr. Scott was saying that we needed to transport from one planet to another. I think that's what you're doing. And
yeah, I mean, you beam people up and down. Now, doesn't that make more sense than taking a big old ship somewhere?
Yeah, I think there's limitations to it, though. I think you probably have to take ships for much longer distances, like interstellar distances, but who knows?
Yeah, that would make sense, too. Well, Star Trek was, obviously, I love Star Trek, and I'm sure you do, too. I grew up with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, thank goodness Americans grew up with Star Trek. Otherwise, we'd be a mess, right?
I would think so, yeah. I mean, the people are intelligent, became more so by watching Star Trek.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Good ideas in that show.
Yeah, it'll give you a higher IQ without a doubt. But we're getting ready to wrap this up pretty soon. But, hey, Steve, I want to thank you again for being on the show tonight. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and I consider you a very good friend. And I have so much respect for who you are and what you do. And I know everybody appreciates you. So thank you very much for being on tonight. And you're always welcome to come back whenever you get new information or whatever it is you're working on with those implant analysis. Let us know. Okay? And yeah.
Can't wait to be on again.
Oh, I can't wait to have you on again. I always enjoy talking to you. Although we do get in this little thing where we go on this other dimension and start going on and on about stuff, but that's just the way it rolls. So anyways, please join me next week when my special guest will be Charles Oatsman. He's a scientist, and that should be very interesting. And also stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dundry-Mackey coming on next to sail you on into the night from down under, of course. And I think that's about it. And once again, we'll be able to see you probably at the Super Soldier Summit Steve on May 29th, 30th?
All right, I'll see you there.
Excellent. Okay, everybody. And I think that's about it. I think we're just about ready to roll out here. We have about 2 minutes left, actually. So is there anything else I didn't mention that you want to cover real quick in less than 2 minutes, Steve?
The polar caps being mostly water ice. The canals that Lowell mentioned that are evident in the Mars Global Surveyor images, straight couple mile wide channels that go throughout the planet, start near the North Polar Cap, as he said. Just about everything Principal Lowell said about Mars has turned out to be true.
Well, that's good.
That's one piece of evidence that indicates that the Martian atmosphere is probably thicker than NASA's been saying, because it's difficult to see how Lowell and his colleagues could have been off by an order of magnitude, and they're right on about everything else.
Right. Well, one thing you won't see, I guess, are a bunch of satellites, junk satellites everywhere around it, huh? just the ones put there by NASA, I think. Space junk.
Although Phobos is probably an alien base. It's probably hollow. A Russian astronomer a while back calculated its mass, or approximate mass, from its rate of orbital decay, and he said it was hollow, and that does turn out to be, or it seems to be the case.
So you think it's manufactured?
Either manufactured or hollowed out, just like our moon.
Well, that's interesting. But is the moon hollowed out because of mining? Because of all the things they've been doing to it?
Yeah, I think it's just been our moon. I think it's been mined so long that it's partially hollow now.
That's terrible, and that tells me that it's going to break orbit. Actually, that tells me that it probably won't stay where it's at. What do you think?
It will eventually. It's on the verge of breaking orbit now. It's at the edge of the Earth's gravitational field.
You know what's really interesting? A long time ago, I think it was back in the 90s, I had a dream about the moon breaking orbit and heading towards Jupiter. I don't know how real that was, but I thought it was interesting nonetheless.
I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, unless the aliens actually propel it, but it will eventually. The Earth's rotation is slowing down, and it's transferring that energy to the moon's kinetic energy, and it's spiraling out from the Earth. As a result, it's eventually going to break orbit, all right.
Right, and on that note, everybody, well, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you again, Steve. I appreciate everybody listening at Revolution Radio. Take care, everybody. Be safe. Have a great week.
Listening to Revolution Radio.